Greetings and welcome to another exciting edition of Poet the Poet. I'm Robert Dunn, and as you're probably aware, I do host this taffy pull here. And today we're coming to you from the Orange Bear in Tribeca, just off City Hall on Murray Street. And thanks to Nick and Andre for letting us come in and take advantage of the place. There are some people I was thinking of taking advantage of too, but maybe I'll talk about that later. In the meantime, we have a couple of fascinating poets to share with you. We have Dickerson in the hat. Yes, that is a hat he's wearing. And we have George Dickerson. Now, with George, you probably recognize his face. I'll just take a moment to mention our little magazine here, our literary journal called Medicinal Purposes. We're very proud of it. It helps keep the show going, and the show helps keep the magazine going because the two projects together bring in very interesting people, like our next guest, whose name is George Dickerson. And in case you recognize him, no, you're not hallucinating, because besides writing poetry, he's done a lot of acting. He's been on Hill Street Blues. For the first season, he's done, the movie Blue Velvet. He's done After Dark, My Sweet. Sometimes he's done them both at the same time.
Really?
Which drove the producers crazy, but that's all right. And as far as writing is concerned, he's been in The New Yorker. He's been in Mademoiselle. Did you have to dress up for that?
Only in drag.
Oh, okay. And Nadada, where he got to share a banana split with Madonna. Something like that. What is Nadada?
Nadada was an old surrealist magazine back in the 60s.
Uh-huh. Speaking of the 60s, George has written a few short stories. A couple of them have been included in the Best American Short Stories of 1963 and 1966, and even Penthouse. So, as you can imagine, George here has tremendous staying power.
I wish I could remember that every morning when I wake up.
And we're very pleased to have you here. Why don't we
Thank you.
get right into a poem?
This is called The Coming On of Night. Light scatters from the trees, like pigeons exploded into flight. Flutters momentarily and seems to die on air. Night picks up his walking stick. Jackhammers machine gunning the streets have stopped their persistent yammer. Only the fragment of an echo brought by the restless wind chatters the Venetian blind. In my room, a girl trembles to an emotion as far away and indecipherable as the shudder of subways through the belly of a building. It is too late for summer, but she makes fireflies in the darkness with her cigarette, insisting on her presence. In the first night, in the garden, did terror strike our hearts with the quickness of the tiger, or was there a sign to ease the uncertainty? A surprise of stars assuring the upturned eyes. Over the city now, stars open their bloodshot eyes in a heavy, sullen neon glow. The girl snuffs out her light, makes a stirring like leaves, like grass disturbed by frightened birds, then empties out my room with the closing of the door. The heart crumples black as a burned letter from the half-forgotten past.
Well, so it would seem.
So it seemed then, anyway.
Yes, I would imagine so. George, a lot of us tend to write poems while we're on our regular jobs. Have you ever written a poem on the set?
On the set of a movie? No, my character's actually my poems on the set of the movie. I can't write anything on the set of a movie.
I thought the characters might have influenced how the writing came out.
No, I sometimes get ideas for poems that may or may not come to fruition. I'll make notes about them, but I really can't write while I'm acting.
Now, what was the name of that woman who played the lawyer on Hill Street? Veronica Hamill, was it?
That's right.
Did she ever give you any ideas?
No, I was very, and still am very married to my wife of 17 years. So Veronica's a lovely, charming lady, but I had no fantasies about Veronica.
You see that, Dickerson? I try to get a little dirt in here, and what happens? Everybody's honest. All
Veronica
right.
was a beautiful woman.
Yes. How about another poem?
another poem. This is called Past Imperfect, which I had originally entitled Archaeology, and I was sort of ruminating through the ruins of my mind and digging through the past. Past Imperfect. Digging through the ruins, I excavate a small fragment of yesterday, a crumpled thing that does not resemble what I had thought would be, or what might have been, had we not dissembled. A curious thing it was, beyond repair. The cup is cracked that once did hold the laughter and the care.
Were you doing some archaeology when you came up with that one?
No, just digging through the ruins of my mind, actually. As I said, just trying to find a poem. You know, poems are very lucky when you find them, you know.
Ah, yes. Usually mine find me, no matter how fast I run or...
Lurking in the closet, hopefully.
No, that would worry me very much. George, I mean, I look at your bio and look at your bio and look at your bio and
The fragmented man.
Well, no, let's face it, this is the envy of anybody who's ever put pen to paper or gotten up in front of a camera or anything like that. I mean, the major motion pictures, the major publication credits and all that.
Well, I didn't become an actor until I was in my 40s. Before that, I was in publishing and was a diplomat for the UN and worked in Beirut, Lebanon, and was there during the Lebanese Civil War. And speaking of finding poems, which you were talking about, and we were talking about, because of the war, I didn't write poetry for 20 years. I wrote a lot of poetry in my youth and started when I was 19 in college. And
actually, that's kind of surprising because a lot of poets have found inspiration in the tragedy.
Well, I know. I think the war was so ferocious that it sort of scorched the poetry out of me. To go back to my college days, I wrote a lot of adolescent poems at the very beginning, and I happened to leave one out for my college roommate found it on the desk.
Yeah.
And he was a fairly fat young man. He crawled up on a desk and he put his fist to his head to declare my poem, "Oh, cloud, oh, cloud." Unfortunately, that
and he got rained on.
Right, that early literary criticism failed to deter me.
Well, lucky for us. You mentioned seeing the war in Beirut, and that reminded me of something else that you did. You were working for a congressman during the Watergate era.
Yeah, I was press secretary with Congressman Robert A. Steele from Connecticut down in Washington for a while during the Watergate era. It was,
and in Watergate, what did they catch you doing?
They caught me leaving Washington, is what they did. running from Washington to the United Nations.
Which then sent you to Beirut because there was no treaty.
I wrote a poem about losing the poetry in Beirut, if you care to hear that.
Certainly.
It's called Perspectives on the Death of Poetry in Beirut. The commando cradled the poem in his arm. When he made the poem speak, it spit stanzas at pedestrians who fled from poetry. From the rocket launcher, a barrage of poems burst like roses in the street. The eloquent shards inscribed the houses with an elegy. Fragments of the poem's petals were found in the face and chest of a young girl, overcome by the eternal aspect of poetry. At night, when we fought with fitful sleep, the deep, guttural throat of poetry roared across the rooftops and devoured our dreams. A wayward poem entered the boy's head and left his eyes hollow with amazement. A poem snatched hunger from 20 people waiting for bread. 2 poems recklessly slit each other's bellies. The head of a truncated poem was proudly impaled on a barricade. From the cellar, where 15 poems lay crushed, oozed the sweet odor of poetry. When the plane lifted off over Beirut, I could see poems shrouding the city, and I abandoned poetry.
We are grateful that you came back to it.
Yes, I came back to it only a year ago, a little over a year ago. And the first poem I came back to sort of happened on me late one night, and I leapt up. I was already in bed, and I leapt up from bed, and I scribbled down this poem, and I said, "My God, I can write a poem again." And I cried, actually. And that poem, would you like to hear that poem, or would you like to comment on it?
No. I was just thinking that. Are you sure it wasn't? You started yelling out of the corridor, "Doc, I can write."
Right, Stein.
All right, let's hear what came out of that.
I've fallen and I can't get up. Type of
Your
thing.
Renaissance here.
Right.
Yeah.
It's called Relativity. Outside, I can hear a siren speeding towards someone waiting. Someone who may not know he is waiting. On my kitchen table, I reach for a crust of bread and crumbs I've not yet eaten. Between the reach and the waiting is the cave of a parabola, where I can hear Einstein laughing. Now, if you can figure out what that means, tell me.
Well, Einstein was always a good man with a joke. I was wondering if you had another small one.
Another small one.
That we could slip on.
Sure. Obad, rising out of sleep before the sunlight startles, before morning coffee dispels all foggy remnants of our calypso dreams, before a windy commerce wears me down, I am rational as a stone, certain of my shape and form, undiminished, but alone.
Rational as a stone?
Yes, rational as a stone. Think of it. It's complete. I have one last poem I'd like to read if we have time.
All right. A little one, a quickie.
Yeah, it's called Song for Suzanne.
Ah, yes.
Sunlight stumbled in your dark brown hair, then promised always to trespass there. At my bedroom door, you hesitated. Even the mice held their breath and waited. If I could be impossibly clever, I'd trick this silence to sing forever. Water would not boil in kitchen kettle, nor counter rose drop a ravaged petal, nor tattered dreamer falter to the ground, nor trembled fingers freeze, nor sirens sound. After we tangoed our tethered dance, I could dare to steal a final chance to still the wagging tongue of time and make the stars swing round in rhyme.
Now I'm going to have to go out and resuscitate the mice. Well, thank you, George Dickerson and Dijate, for being on Poet to Poet. And until next time, this is Robert Dunn saying cognito ergo sum.